No mai, hari mai, whakatau mai rā. Good evening and a warm welcome to everyone joining us this evening. Ko Roxanne Haynes toko ingoa. I work for Iki Pānuku in the role of Principal Strategic Placemaker and am facilitating our conversation this evening. Thank you for joining us tonight, such a great turnout, and welcome to those joining online who are watching the Auckland Conversations website. Auckland Conversations provides an opportunity to inspire and stimulate thinking about some of the challenges our city is facing. It is a great privilege tonight to be joined by international urban ecology expert Salvador Rueda. But first, a few housekeeping notes before I invite Malcolm to open us for a karakia. Bathrooms are located on the left, right, over this way. And if we have an emergency, head out to Aotea Square, which is that way, and follow the instructions of the venue staff. We also ask you make sure your phone is on silent, but we encourage you to post on the social networks and ask questions via Slido, which I'll explain a bit more about shortly. Before we go any further, I would like to welcome Malcolm Davis to formally open our evening.
Tēnā tātou. Do we have any musicians in here this evening? Great, I'm going to sound good now. I'm going to really sound good. Ko Malcolm Davis tōku ingoa no Taranaki au. So my name's Malcolm Davis. I come from the area of Taranaki, but I also work for council, and it's an honour and a privilege for me to be here this evening. We're going to open up with a hymn, then I'll do a karakia. And if you're able to, please be upstanding. If you're unable to, just kei te pai, you can stay seating. Ka pai. If you know the song Wairua Tapu, sing along. Ka pai. Wairua tapu tau mai rā, Wairua tapu mai runga, uia mai ngā taonga pai, o mai tō aroha. Wahia kia tika, a kona maira kia uki te pai, o roia kia matonu rā, mo te tino kroria. Wairua tapu tau mai rā, Wairua tapu tau mai rā, Wairua tapu tau mai rā. Me noi tātou. E onore e karoria ki te atua, e maunga rongo ki te wenawai wakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. E karanga tū ki ngā aitu o te ao, hara mai tō manaakitanga, tō wairua, tō arohaki a mātou e tēnei rā. Manakitia mai ki a mātou i ngā whānau i roto i te me ngā hohi pero o tēnei ao. Manakitia mai ngā manuhiri whakahira kei te hari mai i konei a tēnei pō. E mihi ana ki ngā aitua, hara mai tō aroha ki a mātou e tēnei rā. Hara mai tō aroha ki te mana whenua o tēnei rōpū a Ngāti Whātua. E mihi ana ki a rātou mo tō awhi manaakitanga ki a mātou e tēnei rā. Ko rangi nui atu i honei, ko papatū ānuku e takato nei. Tūturu whakamaua ki a tīna, aumi e, ui e, tāi ki e. Tēnā tātou katoa, e noho tātou.
Thank you, Malcolm. The format for tonight will be a presentation by our keynote speaker, Salvador Rueda, followed by discussion with a period of Q&A where you, the audience, will have the opportunity to ask questions. We will be using Slido, which I hope most of you will be familiar with from previous Auckland conversations. This is an interactive Q&A tool. What you need to do is visit slido.com and enter the event code #Superblock, and it'll come up with this event and you can send through your questions. We'll try to get through as many as time allows, and you can submit your questions during any point of the evening. You can also post on socials during the event using the hashtag #AKLConversations. We always try to ensure Auckland Conversations events are inclusive and accessible. On-demand viewing of tonight's talk, along with a full transcript and captioning, will be available on the Auckland Conversations website in the next few days. This evening's conversation is in partnership with Eki Panuku, Auckland Council's urban regeneration agency, tasked with creating amazing places. Eki Panuku works across several neighbourhoods using its place-led regenerative approach to enable thriving town centres. This whole of systems approach focuses on the unique identity of a place, bringing together community, urban living, healthy natural systems, looking at integrated transport and local economy in order to make a better place for everyone. Our work is not that dissimilar from the work of Salvador's agency in Barcelona, the Urban and Territorial Ecology Foundation. Their mission is to support urban ecosystems and has people and the laws of nature at the centre of its planning approach. I'm really looking forward to hearing more from Salvador shortly. Over the past couple of days, Salvador has spent time here in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, getting to know a little bit more about this place. He definitely has a keen eye for data and has asked lots of really good questions. He shared something yesterday which really stuck with me, talking about the city as the most complex ecosystem that the human species has created. It's quite a big thing to digest. When working in this very much alive and living organism, the idea of viewing the city as an ecosystem is a core foundation of urban planning and placemaking, and is increasingly important for us to better understand our city in this way, especially now, considering the complex issues that our city centres, along with many cities all over the world, are facing with current social, economic and environmental conditions. Complexity requires a multi-agency, multidisciplinary approach. And to do that, we need to work in new and innovative ways together. As Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. The emerging field of regenerative design is starting to look at these complex problems, and in Tamaki Makaurau, we're uniquely placed with a significant number of people trained in this field, along with the support of our Indigenous partners. And what sets Aotearoa aside internationally is Te Ao Māori. Our mana whenua partners understand the intrinsic connectivity of people, place, and nature, and embed concepts of whakapapa and mauri across projects in our city. Recent examples of projects that put the health of people, place, and our natural systems at the heart are Te Ara Awataha in Northcote, the Puhunui Regeneration Program out south, and Te Ara Tukutuku, the waterfront park on Wynyard Point, where Salvador has been spending his time today. These projects all build on the unique natural environment, a luxury that we have here in Tamaki Makaurau. Barcelona is obviously a very different city and far more densely populated with a much older urban form and different topography. The topography informs its well-known orthogonal grid. And I think I can confidently say there's probably a bit more of Gaudi's work in Barcelona than here in Auckland. This ecosystem approach that Salvador will speak about and the concept of superblocks has emerged out of working with this complexity and has inspired cities around the world. The traffic planning concept of superblocks first originated in Barcelona, exploring ways to reduce emissions in one of the noisiest, most polluted, most trafficked cities in Europe. Intended to calm traffic in residential neighbourhoods, the approach has continued to provide multiple additional benefits beyond just calming traffic. And so, to introduce Salvador Rueda, He is one of the world's most significant urban ecologists. His work focuses on different aspects of the urban environment, an integrated and multidisciplinary perspective. His background is in biology and psychology, and he continues to champion participatory decision-making and the importance of the leading role and prioritization of humans when designing cities. He has been the coordinator of renovation and revitalization programs in the Ciutat Vella, the old city district of Barcelona. From 2000 to 2020, he's been the director of Urban Ecology Agency of Barcelona, where he has worked on a number of projects aimed at reorientating cities toward a more sustainable model. Salvador now advises on the implementations and these approaches across the world as the director of the Urban and Territorial Ecology Foundation. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Salvador Rueda.
Thank you, Rosanna. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. No paniora ahou, ko Salvador Rueda ahou, ko te, Fundación Ecología Urbana y Territorial, ko tu wahi mahi. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, tatou. Thank you to the Auckland Conversations for this invitation. Today, for me, is an honor to stay here with you, and I hope you stay well with this Superblock concept, and I hope in the future Auckland change in the direction of a most sustainable city. This is the model splits of the main cities in New Zealand. Model splits, in that case, in Auckland, suppose the 83% of the trips made by car is not sustainable. Sorry, but it's 83% is a lot. It's a lot because if you want arrive to your destination by foot, the energy that you need is only the energy equivalent a domestic bulb of 150 watts. With a car is 6,000 more, but with energy non-renewable. Okay, we have a very huge problem. We will see how we can change something. And for this, I want today explain this Superblock concept in Barcelona city. And not only, I will use other cities over the world how are involved in that moment in the development of this concept. Unfortunately for us, still, the 85% of our streets are involved in displacement, in particular by car. 85% of the public space is huge. It's not sustainable. And the impact and dysfunctions that is coming with this kind of urban mobility model suppose a huge air pollution, noise, accidents, soil occupancy, energy consumed, emission of the greenhouse gases, etc., etc. Is not sustainable. For this, if we want to change this, we need another urban mobility model. The key in the city is the public space, and the mobility is one of the uses of the public space. But the public space is the key because it makes us citizens. We are citizens because we can stay in the public space, because the public space is the house of everybody. Is the house of everybody. At the end, like in Auckland, our streets are occupied by beton, concrete, and cars. It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous, our streets. And we need to change this current framework. For this, I propose develop a superblock model for a city. In particular, in Barcelona, was approved in 1915 for the city council, for the plenary of the city council, and approved this new model. If you analyze this map with this other, it's huge, the change. It means that we can release the 70% of the public space today related with mobility, in particular by car, to become streets for pedestrians. 70%, more than 2,500 streets. More than 7 million of square meters released. But how many traffic we need to reduce to get this? Only 15%. With only 15% less of traffic, we get 70% of public space for other uses, not for displacement, in particular by car. 70%, 15%. And the cost of this is very cheap. With tactical solutions, the cost to implement the 500 superblocks in Barcelona is only 300 million of euros. The budget of the City Council this year was 3.8 billion of euros. It's nothing. In 10 years, the investment that we need to implement the first year, the superblocks, is only 30 million of euros. What is 30 millions in comparison with 3.8 billion of euros? 0.0001. No, nothing. The superblock model is a network. Every city have a network, particularly network, because it's accommodated to the morphology and the characteristic of the main streets. But every city have a particular superblock model. It's a model because it's possible to spread and implement it in all the cities. All the cities. Because of ISA, in the moment we can say this is a model. On the other hand, this model wants to release the maximum surface today related with mobility, assuring the functionality and the organization of the city. And we get this, reducing only the 15% of the traffic. It's easy to understand, okay? Because it's not a traffic problem. And also, it's not an economic problem. It's a cultural problem. Cultural problem, it means our lifestyles are against of this kind of models. But the future is here. And the uncertainties are huge and very serious, in particular the climate change. What will happen with our children in the future? If we don't make something today, it will be impossible to assure the future for them, even for us. This model wants, at the same time, to reduce the current dysfunctions, air pollution, noise, accidents, soil occupancy, energy consumed, etc., etc. Okay? If we want to develop the Superblock model, the first step is to redesign the public transport network. And this public transport network defines the perimeter of the Superblocks, because it's based in the public transport network, not in cars. Because the public transport network, if it is good, arrive at all the fabrics inside of the city and allow the accessibility of everybody. In that moment, in Auckland, the percentage of people without age license or cars perhaps is the 50%. They don't have the accessibility of the city assured. Needs someone to make the taxi driver in every family. It's not just for these people, okay? The public transport network, the best is orthogonal. We get this relationship between the surface released and this score of 15% of traffic less because of the orthogonal networks mathematically are the most efficient inside of the city. It's mathematical, okay? In the case of Barcelona, I redesigned the new public transport network and passed from 84 lines to 28. And the connectivity is better. It means the distance between a point to the stop, less of the 300 meters, is better. Practically the 99% of people have a stop at less of 300 meters. And the frequency of pass in the previous radial network was in average 15 minutes of frequency of pass. In the peripheria, more. With the new public transport network, orthogonal public transport network, the frequency of pass is between 4-5 minutes. 4-5 minutes like a metro, with the same number of buses. Attention. And at the end, we are looking for that the time waiting in a stop, in average, must be closer to 2 minutes, because our mind watch start to feeling that we are waiting after 2 minutes. Okay? Left below we have the bicycle network. The public transport network is already made. The bicycle network also. And at right below we have the streets in blue that become pedestrian. A superblock, at left we have the current situation where the cars go for everywhere. At right, the scheme is urban cell with 400 meters per 400 meters site in Barcelona, 16 hectares, where the black lines integrate the totality transport networks. It means public transport, bicycle, cars. Bicycle, if we have the section with the wider that we need, and sidewalks. At the end, we integrate in the black lines, integrate all the modes of transports to connect the different parts of the city. And inside in green, we have the pedestrian streets. But that streets are sharing with other uses. In particular, the car can go in and can arrive at all destinations in the facades of the ground floor. It means it's very flexible, the model. Everybody can arrive at your destination without problem. The constriction is that the cars can go through to the superblock. And with these loops, we can go in, but we can go out behind of the point where we can go in. At the end, it's stupid to go in if you don't have the destination inside of the superblock. It means the 95% of the cars don't go in because it's not intelligent. Inside also, the other constriction is 10 kilometers per hour. With 10 kilometers per hour, the old people, the blind people, the children, the vulnerable people can go in the middle of the street safely. This project put in the center of the planification people, the vulnerable people. If the vulnerable people are inside, means is a good planification, and the natural laws. We will see. But at the end, walking and bicycling, with bicycle, we can go in both directions inside of the superblock. This is a street in the perimeter, and this is the streets inside of the superblock. This concept are planified for Madrid, for Vitoria, for Granollers, for La Coruña, for Córdoba, for Malaga, for Bogota is the last. This site is 25 kilometers of superblocks per 8 kilometers. It's huge. Okay? Quito, Buenos Aires, Asunción. We need to share the streets, okay? we need to cross the different maps in the time and to get this quantity of pedestrian streets. Today we have this. It's not bad, the quantity of streets, pedestrian streets in Barcelona, but is this the final scenario? And the image that we get is that it's already made this in Barcelona. We have 6 Superblocks official and 31 that the politics perhaps they don't make this and then they don't want recognize that we have 31 Superblocks. This is a tactical street inside of a Superblock. This is a street at the end of the 70s. How is possible to change? Or how in our city, with this morphology, special morphology in the intersections, we have octagons, okay, of 2,000 square meters. We can get 163 new squares of 2,000 square meters without demolish any building. It's very cheap. And we pass from here to here. This is a tactical in Sant Antoni Superblock. It's very nice. It's very crowded of people. Different people in the different hours of the day. Children after they go out of the schools. What problems solve the Superblocks? We publish an article where we demonstrate the number of deaths, premature deaths, that we can avoid if we implement the Superblocks in Barcelona. 667 people we can avoid to death every year. Or this quantity, or this quantity of the problems with the asthma, the bronchitis, or the cardiovascular hospitalizations. Okay? With this we can save every year because we reduce the invoice of health problems like this, or the number of days that the people can go work because are ill for these reasons. The 1.7 billion of euros every year. And the cost is 30 million of euros. The traffic accidents also will be reduced because at 10 kilometers per hour, practically we have no accidents, mortal or serious. And in the perimeter, the speed is 30 kilometers per hour. It means we can reduce the 40% at least of the serious accidents by car. This is the huge change of the urban air pollution. Practically only 6% of the population will have a concentration of oxide d'azote over the 40 micrograms per cubic meter. Okay, in that moment is 44%. Or noise, or even the biodiversity. We can change cars for trees, and we can adapt our cities to the climate change because the trees project shadow, and we can also change the permeability of our pavements. It means 3 or 4 degrees less is key for us. For you, perhaps less, but for us is crucial. The heat island effect in Barcelona in several days can suppose 8 degrees in the center related with the periphery by night. With the Superblock project, we extend a green carpet in surface and in the roof. All is in green. And after that, the temperature of the materials after this proposed can be reduced in a 27%, is a lot. And also, with the project, we can reduce the 45% of the emissions of the greenhouse gases that we have like objective, like a city, for 2030. In that moment, we already have the score get. Because we pass from the 26% of the trips by car in our model split. In that moment, after the urban mobility model that I had the honor to redact for the city, is in that moment the 18% only. 18%. Oakland is 83%. The green infrastructure increase. This is one of the latest projects that we are making with Vitoria-Gasteiz City, and in the current situation, we have 47,000 trees in the streets, and we can add 33,000 more. Not bad. And we can develop these corridors, green corridors, connecting the different parts, main parts around of the city that Vitoria-Gasteiz has a very, very good and very nice green belt. Connected in that case. In the case of Granollers City, in that moment they have 7,000 trees with the Superblocks. Is more than the double of the trees that we can plant. Practically all the streets can have trees in an alineation to provide us the shadow that we need. This is the main corridors for this city. Another thing very important is how we can increase the number of activities when we implement the Superblocks. In all the Superblocks implemented, at least the economic activity increased on 15%. But we have Superblocks with more than the 60% of new activities. From pedestrian to citizens is the most revolutionary aspect of the Superblock, because go to the root of the city. The city, we have city if we have public space. If not, not. If not, we have urbanizations. It's different. In the urbanization, doesn't happen. In the suburbs, doesn't happen. It's a desert. It's like a cemetery. In the public space, when we have a number enough of people and activities, it's very vibrant, it's vital, okay? We need to make also habitable with this kind of solutions. But at the end, the important thing is to pass from pedestrian to citizens. Why? Because currently, the planners, their maximum aspiration is to become streets with car in pedestrian streets. But a pedestrian is a mode of transport. The citizen is something more. The citizen can develop at the right scheme a lot of uses, not only displacement. The children can play once again in the street. Why not? With the Superblocks, we define the conditions to make safety the children and everybody. Okay? At the end, the entertainment, the exchange, the art, the culture, even the participatory process, the debate, the democratic debates in the public space is possible. And also the displacement, above all, by foot or bicycle. Yeah. And we can have something, we can get something like that. Or that. Or that. All is possible. The citizen rights explode. The uses in the public space make that our social contact is possible. Today is not possible. The debate in that case, in a superblock, when we start the Poblenou superblock, for example. And also, we have the movements, the displacements. Yeah, no problem. And I want to finish my intervention. I start with the words, Maori words. I want to finish with a Catalan word, okay? And for this, oh no, what is happening? Okay, it's coming? Yeah. This is Superilla is Superblock in Catalan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salvador. Wow, whew, where to begin? I think it's come through as one of the main questions, but I think a question you must get a lot of the time, I'm sure you have an easy answer, is Auckland does not have a grid structure. And the city fabric is greatly informed by the natural features, the two harbours, also thinking about the volcanoes and the different topography in the and topology in the area. How would you work with the superblock concept in our city?
I listened that this concept is impossible to develop in Auckland, but that people are not a lot of original, because in Christchurch said the same, in Queenstown the same. In A Coruña, at the beginning, the same. And Madrid, etc. Everybody think that their city is not Barcelona. It's true. But in Barcelona we have buildings, streets, people, and cars. It depends of the organization. And also we have hills. We have 7 hills in Barcelona. It's not flat. Then it's possible to develop. I said at the beginning, every city will have its particular network accommodated to their morphology and the characteristics of the main streets. But in every city it's possible to implement the Superblocks. Don't worry.
In terms of those natural features, and I think you've spent a bit of time in Auckland and seeing the coast, how the harbour meets the land, how do you think we could use those features better?
Yeah. I visit this afternoon Vineyard neighborhood. I recommend you make in that place the first Superblock of New Zealand. It's very easy. It's very easy. I don't understand why you don't make it the Superblock before. It's very easy. And you can get an incredible contact with the sea. Green, calm, vital, etc. You must change something. You need to include the urban ecosystem principles. I define this new urbanism and it allow to change everything and the system of proportions of this nice and particular and special neighborhood. I recommend you to transform the contact with the sea, the waterfront, because it's an opportunity, incredible opportunity. Believe me.
One of the questions that's come up that I think relates to that is around the environmental changes, and in particular water and the management of water and for climate resilience and the concept of sponge cities. So can you talk a bit more about how the Superblock could work towards water-sensitive design?
Yeah. The water is inside of these principles of the urban ecosystem. I explained today the Superblock like a base of a new urban mobility model and public space model. But the Superblock is also the base of the ecosystemic urbanism. And the water is inside. Is necessary to include the water. It's key. Okay? And the water, the first that I recommend is to reduce the consume. The first thing. I don't know what is the quantity of liters per inhabitants every day has Auckland. I don't know. 200, 200 and 500.
He's a data man. We need the
yes,
data.
That you have somebody here in the room know this. Okay, doesn't matter. I think it's over 200 and 500 liters per inhabitants every day. In that moment in Barcelona we are fighting because we have a dry weather climate incredible. Okay. never in the history of the Catalonia we had something like that. It's like a catastrophe, okay? But after different dry periods in Barcelona, people are very sensible with this problematic, and in that moment we are consuming 104 liters per inhabitant. It's very good. In California, for example, is 500 liters per inhabitant. With the difference, okay? But also the typologies of the dwellings are very important. The single levels housings, like in Auckland, perhaps I said 200 and 500. Perhaps is a little more, I think, because you have grass, you need to clean the cars, and this spend a lot of water, a lot of water. At the end, reduce the consume, and above all, I think every city needs to make renewable the water in the hydric cycle. It means the water must be cleaner after their uses, very cleaner, okay? And the reutilization is the key in a lot of examples. Why not in particular in Auckland? The water is very important. For example, we stayed several days ago, two weeks ago, in Queenstown. We detect how the lake is so important in Queenstown, and I think that the decision makers don't show awareness of this aspect so important for Queenstown in the and its future.
We'll come back to the decision makers shortly.
Okay.
A question quite specific is, obviously with the Superblocks, you're displacing some of the traffic onto the other streets. Are there any downsides for the other streets, and is there an increased volume of traffic and issues because of the, you understand, yeah?
Okay, I have the answer. Because the urban mobility plan that I redact, with this 15% of carless in circulation, we get a similar traffic services. It means the speed in the Superblock model will be similar at the current situation, and the environment problems will be similar. At the end, with 15%, the streets in the perimeter of the Superblock will be, with the 15% of carless, an environment similar at the environment today. But the urban mobility plan, the objective is to reduce not 15%, if not 21%, but no, as this score is not for traffic reasons, it's for environmental reasons, because we need to reduce the air pollution below of 40 micrograms of cubic meter of oxygen root. The reason is environment. At the end, we get an environment in the perimeter of the superblock better than today. And at the end, everybody improve their environmental conditions in the perimeter and inside of the superblocks. Okay? Yes.
Yeah. Thinking about, there's a really great question here, and I'm going to put two parts to it. But the question is, using a participative decision-making approach, how do we convince a population accustomed to driving everywhere to reduce the amount of vehicle traffic? And I think you talked about the how everybody, an ecosystem has everybody involved. So I think part of that is what is the role of the citizens, but also what is the role for our leaders of our city, and it both, coming from many places.
I'm a psychologist also. And this this question is the most difficult question that you can ask me. It's very difficult. Because imagine of thinking about how many advertisements of cars everybody, all of us, seeing to the long of their life, of their life, exactly. It's huge. He sells us the status, the autonomy, the free lifestyle. All of this is inside of our brain for decades. How is possible to fight against this? It's quite impossible, because it's like a dish, the modern dish in the new gastronomy, the deconstruction of the dish. But we have in our brain a physical car, but is deconstructed inside of our neurons. This is our problem. It's a very huge and serious problem. And then it seems impossible. No, this is not possible. Because in our brain is very, very well defined how we analyze the reality, and always impact or with the wheel or with the involve of the car, but different parts of the cars are inside of our brain, and always impossible to thinking. In conclusion, please take out the car of the brain. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. You are a human being, different human beings.
Have you seen any examples of how people are inspired to take the car out of their brain? Examples from where you have implemented or are trying to implement new superblocks. How have you inspired or encouraged people?
I don't know. In Auckland, you have a very good. I don't know if it in the suburbs is the same. In the center, we have a very good bicycle network. It's an alternative. I use it. But you need a new public transport network. You need this. If you want, I can help to redesign. But is mandatory. It's necessary. Because if not, we don't have future. And the first step is this. When you have this shape, this network, that the network is well done thought, because the distance is less of 300 meters inside of this and stop of public transport. You have practically the superblocks. The base of the superblocks is inside of this perimeter of the public transport network. And you can make in this time, while the planners are redesigning the new and orthogonal public transport network, you can try to take out the car of your brain, and after that are feeling other sensations, and when the new orthogonal public transport network is already made, then you are ready to understand and to accept the superblocks in the future.
I think you might have answered this next question, but apart from improving public transport, having seen Auckland, cycled around Auckland, what do you think are the unique challenges and opportunities to include a superblock or other urban ecology opportunities for Auckland?
I think you can start for this Wynyard Superblock neighborhood. Is the first. It's very easy, believe me. Secondly, first, redesign the new public transport network, okay?
One.
And at the same time, in parallel, you can redesign the city, creating new centralities around of several rail stations. Is a very good attractor, and the conciliars can include in their programs new facilities near, close of these train stations, and also push in including new activities around of this. At the end, if we have the services enough to the daily life for several parts of the city, the number of movement by foot will increase. And do you know what suppose this? At the end, we need to redesign the city, including new centralities, and increasing the densities, because we need to develop cities, not urbanization, not suburbs. We need to transform our city, because at the end, the urban quality will increase, and also the quality of life of the Auckland citizens, because you are marvelous people, I know, but your city is not the same.
You talked a bit about the activities, businesses and organizations, but in terms of residents, how does the cultural shift, how do you bring residents who live there on board inside a superblock but also have the residents of Superblocks, do they like living there? Has that been an increase in positive feedback from residents?
Yeah, it's always the same. It's a problem of communication. It's a problem to comprove when you have several experience how is possible to live inside of these neighbors. Okay, these new superblocks. In Barcelona, when the journalists come to ask me about the superblocks, to make interviews, etc., always I said, I say, please go to ask, to make questions to the people against the superblock. Please go. After, go to interview people in favor of the superblock. But don't forget to go to interview people living for 10 years in a superblock. And after that, all the journalists, the New York Times, Le Monde, The Guardian, the CCV, all arrive at the same conclusion. It's a silly thing. Don't agree with the superblock model. At the end, perhaps they need to make 150 meters more to arrive at their garage. It's not a problem, because the urban quality increased so much, and it's not comparable with this inconvenience. They find that the people against the superblock is only a question related with they don't want to change the habits, even the little habits. Okay, it's a culture.
I have one last question. It's actually my own question. And you spoke a little bit yesterday and this morning around very limited time for what's coming for us. Not just climate change, biodiversity, etc. So when thinking about the future of our cities in Spain, but also in Aotearoa, what gives you the most hope?
Unfortunately, I'm not so optimist. I'm a very pessimist, intellectually pessimist. I don't see anything that make me hope process how we can change this current scenario with so big and huge uncertainties. This is the problem. It's the reality. I'm a very positive person. Very positive. Every day I wake up with a very huge energy to change something. Every day. But I know what is the reality. I think it's necessary to change this. For example, with this kind of solutions, don't break nothing. We assure the functionality of the city. Why? It's impossible to understand why not. Okay, but the hope is the latest. Is we can lose. No, we need to fight until the end, but fight. Today, stay here. the next week in Wellington, after in Ibiza, in Bogota. These months are very crazy for me, but it's positive, my attitude. If not, it will be a lot of frustrated and depressed. And it's not convenient for me. I'm a psychologist, I'm not convenient.
Thank you, Salvador. I thought you were going to leave us on a bit of a grim note there, but I really appreciate the rallying call to us here in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. So I just want to thank you again. I think hearing that it's a cultural problem, I think is very inspiring to think how we can take the car out of our brain. Even just for a small 5 minutes is something to think about. I think thinking about the wider health impacts that you shared from the Superblock that have come out, and the biodiversity, urban heat island effect, and even the livability for people who are living there. And I'm sure there are many other benefits, loneliness for people being connected, and just living in a neighborhood that is in that really connected place. I also really appreciated thinking about citizens. We are all citizens, as well as rather than pedestrians. I think that's definitely something for our city to keep thinking about. So is there anything else you would like to share? Any other final words?
Oof, a lot. But I think is follow my recommendations. Yeah. I don't have any interest, economic and political interest. I don't have any. Only the reason, the science, the knowledge, the experimentation allow me to say that recommendation for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Salvador. I'd like to welcome Councillor Dalton up to give a vote of thanks, and then Malcolm will come up and close our evening.
Wa tēnā koutou katoa, ko Angela Dalton tēnei. I'm Auckland Councillor representing the Manurewa Papakura Ward out south. Thank you so much, Salvador. I was able to pop into part of your session this morning too, and just want to thank you for sharing with us a vision that we should have for our city. You said it is possible. Don't worry, it's possible. And we will hold on to that. And as you said, we need to keep up the good fight. Some things that resonated with me, just a few key comments that you made. I really liked what you said about the human-centred approach and putting our vulnerable people at the centre of our decision-making and our designs. Maybe children, our vulnerable people. The key to the city is our public space. That is the house of everybody. Our public space is the house of everybody. And we saw that in some of the photos that you shared with us today. But we do have a cultural problem, we do. And our lifestyles are against this model. And we also, I think, are feeling that we have a stronger political problem, both locally and in central government, that is going to be a challenge for us to be able to enable this vision that we have for our city. And when I was listening to you and looking at the models, I was applying it to where I come from, not just at our city here, our big, beautiful city, but also how that can apply in the suburb that I live in, my hometown, and how wonderful that would be to have places like that for our children, for our older people, everybody, just to be, and to be proud of their place in Tamaki Makaurau. So, yes, we will keep up the good fight, and we will hold fast that it is possible, because sometimes we need to go through cycles, don't we, of political leadership. But it does take all of us, and it takes a shift. And I listened to an economist on the breakfast program, I think it was last week, saying that until the population decides what they want for their country and have the courage to vote for that change, nothing will change. So we all have a part to play there. Look, I just want to, as well as thanking you so much, I want to thank Iki Panuku, because by supporting this event tonight, it shows that they are showing some leadership in about the education and international best practice that they want to share with all of us, and also in the work that they are doing throughout our city. I want to thank you, Roxy. You left us with you gave us a good quote too, an old Einstein quote, which I think was good. No problem can be solved by the same level of consciousness from which it was designed. Reminded me of some of the councillors I sit with around the table, actually. That's challenging. Thank you, Ashley, too, for all the work that you've done, everyone from Iki Panuku. Now, we've got a couple of more talks coming up. I'm just going to have a look at my notes to make sure I've captured everything here. A couple of more talks coming up for you, and thank you all for attending tonight. It's a really good turnout tonight. And for everyone that is online, hi Neil, watching us tonight. We've got some councillors that couldn't make it and are online as well. Thursday the 21st of March, we have Our City Tomorrow, Reimagining Auckland, featuring Helen Clark and Jeanette Sadik Khan. And then on Tuesday the 26th of March, we have Shaping Tomorrow Together, Exploring the Deliberative Democracy Journey, something we really need to get our heads around as a council. And that's featuring a panel of excellent speakers. Oh, I haven't got their names, but they're excellent speakers. So hope you can all make it back to those. Something I'm really interested in. If I can just do a pitch, please, for you and 10 other people that you know to put in feedback on the long-term plan that's out for consultation at the moment. That is the only way we get change. Councillors find it really, really difficult to challenge the status quo when we don't have anything from our public to tell us what we do, to tell us what to do, tell us what we should do. So thank you all very much for being here tonight. I would like to invite Malcolm back to close us with a karakia. Thank you very much.
Baek, and thank you for coming to my concert. And again, just thanking Salvador for coming here this evening and sharing his knowledge and wisdom with us, and also to have a look at our beautiful country and what it has to offer for him. So enjoy your stay. If it has got nothing to do with your speeches, just enjoy the stay. Bye. So if you're able to, ladies and gentlemen, if we could please be upstanding. Our final hymn this evening is He Honore. If you know it, sing it along, and then I'll close this off with a karakia for tonight. Ka pai. He honore, he kororia, mga rongo ki te whenua, pakaro, paie, ake amene te atua te peringa tōku oranga tōku oranga ko rangi e tui hōnei ko papatua nuku e takato nei e mihi ana ki a kōrua mo tō manaakitanga ki a mātou e tēnei pō manaakitanga ki a mātou manuhiri whakahirahira ko te haere mai konei ki te kōrero atu ki a tātou e tēnei pō. E mihi ana ki a koutou ki te haere ki rungo e te huarahi i tō waka ki tō kāinga he pai mārire he haere ana ki a koutou. E mihi ana ki ngā manuhiri ki te haere mai konei ki te tautoko te kōrero, ki te tautoko te mahi a tēnei pō. Nō reira mihi ana ki a koutou hoki ki te mana whenua a Ngāti Whātua o Rākei, e mihi ana ki a koutou moto awhi te manaakitanga a tēnei pō. Nō reira, tūturu whakamaua ki a tīna, haumi e, hui e, taha e ki e, pōmari e koutou. Safe travels on your way home, and don't drink and drive. You might spill some. Ka whai.